Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Girari Radha Girari Radhe Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada ki Jam Vishpad Paramahamsa Pravijikacharya Sutta Sata Shishimade Si Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Oh ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jam Vishpad Paramahamsa Pravijikacharya Sutta Sata Shishimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki, Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath, Shad Goswami Prabhugan ki, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, installation of Sri Garuda Ji ki, Ganapati ki, Gaur Premanandi, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga, glories to Srila Prabhupada. I said Ganapati, is that another name for Ganesh? Is it? Our glories. So, we're getting to hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 27, attack by Chandavega on the city of Paranjan. And we're on text number 13. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chandavega iti kyato Gandharvadi patirnipa Gandharvastasya balina Sastya uttara shattatrayam Chandavega iti kyato Gandharvadi patirnipa Gandharvastasya balina Shastuttara shatatrayam Chandavegam iti kyato Gandharvadi patirnipa Gandharvastasya balina Shastyatara shatatrayam Chandavega iti kyato Gandharvadi pirnapaha Gandharvastasya balina Sashta uttara shatrayam Chandavega iti kyato Gandharvadi patirnipa Gandharvastasya balina Shastat uttara shatrayam Chandavega iti thus Kyataha celebrated Gandharva belonging to the Gandharva Loka Adipatihi king Nipa O king Gandharva other Gandharvas Tasya his Balina very powerful soldiers Shasti 60 Uttara surpassing Shata 100 Trayam 3 Translation O king in Gandharva Loka there's a king named Chandavega. Under him there are 360 very powerful Gandharva soldiers. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Time is figuratively described here as Chandavega. Since time and tide wait for no man, time is herein called Chandavega, which means very swiftly passing away. As time passes, it's calculated in terms of years. 1 year contains 360 days. And the soldiers of Chandavega herein mentioned represent these days. Time passes swiftly. Chandavega's powerful soldiers of Gandharva Loka very swiftly carry away all the days of our life. As the sun rises and sets, it snatches away the balance of our lifetime. Thus, as each day passes, each one of us loses some of life's duration. It is therefore said that the duration of one's life cannot be saved. But if one is engaged in devotional service, his time cannot be taken away by the sun. I'll reread that. But if one is engaged in devotional service, his time cannot be taken away by the sun. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.17, Ayoharanti vaipumsam udyan astam chayan asau. The conclusion is that if one wants to make himself immortal, he should give up sense gratification. By engaging oneself in devotional service, one can gradually enter into the eternal kingdom of God. Mirages and other illusory things are sometimes called Gandharvas. Our losing our lifespan is taken as advancement of age. This imperceptible passing away of the days of life is figuratively referred to in this verse as Gandharvas. As explained in later verses, such Gandharvas are both male and female. This indicates that both men and women lose their lifespan imperceptibly by the force of time, which is herein described as Chandavega. If we could all pray for a little mercy to descend. Om Jnana-timirandasya Ginanjana Salakaya Chakshurn Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swabadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shirta Patakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karana Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhana Sukta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So time, represented by Chandavega, who's going to attack the city of Paranjana. And it's worth noting, time attacks the city of Paranjana. It doesn't actually attack Paranjana. You and I are not under the influence of time if we take full shelter of devotional service. Srila Prabhupada's making that very clear in the purport. Quoting from second canto, it's a fact. With the rising and setting of the sun, every day, time is imperceptibly snatching away the assets of Pranjana, you and I. The body and mind are being affected by time because they're made of material energy. And as such, they can act upon and be acted upon by matter. In time, jurisdiction is on the kingdom of matter. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells us we should be very much aware of the evils of birth, death, disease, and old age. We have to keep this foremost in our mind, especially in the lower stage of sadhana bhakti, because this helps to snap us out of it that, no, I'm not growing old, I'm not diseased, and I'm not going to die. That's all in relationship to the body and the mind. There's a saying that says, you come into this world barehanded, empty-handed, and you leave this world empty-handed. But that's actually a viewpoint from the materialistic perspective. According to the transcendental knowledge, we came into this world with a boatload of karma and material desires. That's why we got a body again and again. And if we live our life like Paranjana, absorbed in expanding our dynasty, wife, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. My brother has great-grandchildren. If we absorb ourselves in accumulating as much stuff and money and the prestige that goes along with the more you get, the better you are, etc., then you're going to be forced to suffer the evil of birth, death, disease, and old age repeatedly. I have to apologize. I feel like a slug this morning trying to lead a Mongol Arti Kirtan, Guru Puja Kirtan. It's like Krishna's humbling me. He's showing me, oh, you like to dance? You can become a little proud in your dancing before the deities? Oh, here, let me pull a muscle in the calf or strain a muscle more likely. And, you want to neglect it for a week? Despite the pain, dance around this, that, and wake up or come home yesterday morning with a big swollen leg. It's like there's no denying the influence upon the body and the mind if we're not Krishna conscious. I remember when I was Bhakti Raymond, I'd gotten my Bhagavad Gita and I was reading it back at the home. I hadn't moved into the temple or anything. And I had one friend and I tried telling him, we're not this body. This world doesn't impact you and me. And he goes, really, Raymond? You go up onto the house, he pointed next door, we were sitting in the yard, you go up on the house and do a swan dive and tell me that doesn't affect you. It does if we identify with it. If we realize that we're the eternal spirit soul, simply conscious. We are consciousness, pure consciousness, the eternal servant of Krishna, and it doesn't have a thing to do with us. And, that which we are absorbed in right now seems so important, even our services. And they are, but there's a relativeness to it in the sense that the services that we are doing now and the identity we carry now, it is all temporarily manifest, and it will become a dream. I'm not a Brahmin, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya, I'm not a Shudra, I'm not a Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, or Sannyas. This is Lord Chaitanya's words. He prayed this way to the Lord. He said, I'm simply the servant of Lord Gopinath. This is our eternal identity. And if we follow the rules given to us by the spiritual master with full enthusiasm and determination, eagerly praying, accept my faulty, feeble attempts to please you, then by their mercy we can be taken to that realm where once going, one never returns. There is no influence of time there. We'll be fixed in our eternal service, in our eternal identity, and engage in ever variegated, wonderful services, relishing the loving reciprocation with Krishna and his devotees. That platform has no fear. Would you like to hear something very interesting? I found it to be very interesting. They're really pushing this fear of death with the virus, the COVID. I mean, they're pushing it hard. And I looked up the death rate for America. And I just took a picture. I could have gone back 50 years, but on my picture I've got back to 1999. Would you find it interesting that back in the early 2000s and the late 1990s that more people were dying than they are now, percentage-wise, of the American people? Back in 2000, 8.64. 2001, 8.5. 2002, 8.5. 2003, 8.4. 2004, 8.3. 2005, 8.2. 6, 8.2. 07, 8.1. 08, 8%. And interesting, it seems like, there's a little downward curve going on here. So Krishna has his own cycles. There's that one American folk song, death has no mercy in this land. Death has no mercy in this land. And there's no doubt about it. He doesn't take vacations. Constantly doing the job, snatching bodies away from the living entity encased by the mind, and then taking that mind covered soul and then beating and forcing that living entity to now identify with different types of senses and a different body to manifest your desire. So once you hit like the 2009, then it dips down into the 7%. 7.9, 7.8, 7.8, and then it starts going a little bit lower, 7.7. Now let's fast forward to 19, 7.5. So 7.5% of the population was dying. And I'm not even going into the growth rate. But in 2020, so far, and we got some months to go, no question about it, 7.6. But my point is there is a fear program being pushed that we should not buy into because no more people are dying now than they were last year or back 10 years ago. Google it. So I'm speaking about the fear. Krishna says fearlessness is the platform of Krishna consciousness, and I'm just going to read one purport, or one paragraph of a purport, dealing with all qualities of the living entity created by Krishna, including fearlessness, because this hits it on the head, and this is what we should be absorbed in. Bhava, birth, should be understood to refer to the body. As far as the soul is concerned, there is neither birth nor death, that we have discussed in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Birth and death apply to one's embodiment in the material world. Fear is due to worrying about the future. A person in Krishna consciousness has no fear because by his activities he's sure to go back to the spiritual sky, back home, back to Godhead. Therefore his future is very bright. Others, however, do not know what their future holds. They have no knowledge of what the next life holds, so they are therefore in constant anxiety. Sound familiar? I mean, you can slice it with a knife out there. Fear and anxiety. If we want to get free from anxiety, then the best course is to understand Krishna and be situated always in Krishna consciousness. In that way, we will be free from all fear. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.37, it is stated, Bhayam dutiya biniveshita shat. Fear is caused by our absorption in the illusory energy. But those who are free from the illusory energy, those who are confident that they are not the material body, that they are spiritual parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who are therefore engaged in the transcendental service of the Supreme Godhead, have nothing to fear. Their future is very bright. This fear is a condition of persons who are not in Krishna consciousness. Abhayam, fearlessness, is possible only for one in Krishna consciousness. Enough said. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the personalities we're going to be inviting this evening. What time does the program start? 5:15. All of those who are listening. We're going to have a yajna, and we will be inviting Garuda, who will be here in the temple room facing Radhagiridhari, the deities, protecting us, offering his respectful obeisances to the Lord, happy to have their darshan, happy to be seen by the Lord. And on the outside, in the foyer facing the outside, we don't want to put him on the outside, but is Ganesh. And he is there to help remove obstacles for the devotees in their devotional service. So Badri Narayan Swami is going to be giving a class tonight. And he will explain how or why we are doing this, how we have a Goswami culture, Gaudiya Vaishnav culture, that of course we offer our respects to everyone. We certainly offer respects to the devotees, and any devotees that are more advanced in us, we always pray for their mercy to help us become surrendered and sincere in our devotional service. This is our culture. So he'll be explaining. I'm not going to touch on that, but I'm just going to share a little nectar, may I? On Ganesh, first of all. In text 50 of the Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma wrote about Ganesh. Yet pada palava yugam vinidaya kumbha tvande pranama samaye saganadi raja vignan vihanta malamasya jagatriyasya govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, whose lotus feet are always held by Ganesh upon the pair of tumuli protruding from his elephant head in order to obtain power for his function of destroying all the obstacles on the path of progress of the three worlds. Purport by Jiva Goswami, translated by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The power of destroying all obstacles to mundane prosperity has been delegated to Ganesh, who is the object of worship to those who are eligible to worship him. He's obtained a rank among the five gods as Brahman, possessing mundane quality. Now those are the people who are called Pancha Pasanas. They think ultimately the Supreme is impersonal, but if you want to try and get a foothold on the imperceptible, imperishable Brahman, then you meditate on a form of Brahman manifest. It's illusion, temporary, but manifest before us as philosophized Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva, Ganesh, and Durga. So you look up in the Chaitanya Charitamrita for Ganesh, basically every reference Prabhupada is talking about these 5 gods worshipped by less intelligent people. The self-same Ganesh is a god in possession of delegated power by infusion of the divine power. All his glory rests entirely on the grace of Govinda. So he's a middleman, as Srila Prabhupada would emphasize. Srila Prabhupada really trounced demigod worship. I mean, there's just no getting around it. I even was present in a room when a cultured Indian student asked him, how come we don't have Shiva in front of our temple? He said, in India, every Vishnu temple has Shiva outside there. You offer respects to Guru, Shiva, and then you go in to get the mercy of Bhagavan. And he said, I didn't want to complicate it. I didn't want there to be any opportunity for people to misunderstand that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He's one. One Lord, not many. All these demigods are not God. They're not gods. They're servants of the Lord. And Ganesh is aware of that. He's the son of Shiva. He eternally resides with him in Maheshloka or Shiva Dham, above and beyond this material world. Won't get into the pastime of how he got an elephant's head or a fat tummy. You can figure that part out. He likes prasadam. But anyway, we don't worship him for material prosperity. All these personalities have their material side and their spiritual side. Whether you're talking about Lakshmi, Ganesh, or even the Lord. If you reciprocate with the Lord as if he's a stone statue, that's what he will always remain. If you have some idea that he represents God or that God is in the statue, and ask him for your daily bread or material desires, which is pious, makes one, according to Krishna, magnanimous? He said magnanimous. That puts you on a whole different level than those who don't believe in Krishna or deny his supremacy or don't want to recognize it. But if you reciprocate with him as the order supplier, that's what he remains. And life after life, you can try and get comfortable in this world with the help of God and his middlemen. But if you surrender to him, offer your life, your words, your mind, your money, your activities to him and to him only for his pleasure, through the medium of his devotees, then he fully reveals himself. Then we get the full benefit of who he is in our eternal relationship with him. So mundaners will approach Ganesh for removing the obstacles to their business, to their love life, to whatever it may be, schooling, etc. But the devotees understand that, as in the purport says, he gets his power to help others, to remove their obstacles from placing the Lord's lotus feet upon his head. I remember hearing that Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, said that he's a devotee of Nrsingadev. And he worshipped Nrsingadev. Nrsingadev is actually, he's the one who removes, we primarily worship Nrsingadev. He loves serving the devotees, removing their obstacles, removing the weeds in their heart, giving us the blessings to have Vaishnava Sangha and the ability to chant the holy names purely and surrender to Shri Radha and Giridhari. But the servant of the Lord, they are empowered by the Lord, and that's the story of Ganesh. So, all glories to the servant of the Lord, Ganesh. Now, Garuda. That's who I want to churn some nectar, if you'll allow. Who's the supreme personality of Godhead? And from Krishna, expands unlimited forms of the Lord, Vishnu and incarnations, etc., etc. They all come from Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. And many of the eternal associates of the Lord in Vaikuntha, they are those same devotees of Goloka Vrindavan who have expanded themselves to stay with their Lord and to exchange mellows with Him according to the Lord's desire. And Garuda has his origin also in one of the original Dhamvasis of Goloka Vrindavan. Have you heard this? You know who that is? Is it Sridham? Sridham or Sridhar? Sridham. I probably, because I said Maharaj's name, it's Sridham. Sudham and Sridham. Sridham, yes. There's the pastime where the gopis are running around looking for Krishna. Where's Krishna? Where's Krishna? They're asking everybody. They're in a perfect example. They don't see the external material manifestations of the moving and non-moving. They always see Krishna and Krishna's energy. And they are begging for the mercy of all these representatives of Krishna, representations of Krishna. Where is he? Where is he gone? Krishna thought he'd have a little fun and turned into Vishnu. Sridham turned into Garuda. Lord sitting on Garuda, and they come and, Narayan. Om Namo Narayan. We accept our basises. Can you help us out? Do you know where Krishna is? He went that way. And off they went. Well, here comes the straggler, Srimati Radharani, and in her presence, Krishna, he couldn't maintain the rouge. Her love defeats him every time. And he had to manifest as Krishna. So in Brihad Bhagavatamrita it says Sridham expands into Vaikuntha along with Krishna expanding as Vishnu in Vaikuntha. Now these things are inconceivable because there is no beginning, and there is no, creation, there is no birth like we are conditioned to think in terms of, but this is the way it goes. This is how the scriptures describe it. And interestingly enough, Srila Prabhupada says that Garuda is a jiva. Wait a second. Sridham is not a jiva, and Garuda he said this in a conversation. So how to reconcile these things? That's what I'm saying. It's an apparent contradiction, isn't it? So how to reconcile these things? Well, the acharyas never disagree with each other. If you get that down, then you have a big part of the puzzle of trying to understand the inconceivable absolute truth. The inconceivable absolute truth is infinite. And there's no boxing him in or grabbing him and squishing him into your tiny little intelligence so that you can completely comprehend him. Not a chance. We're minute. We're infinitesimal. How do we accommodate understanding the infinite? Only what he reveals to us. And he has infinite aspects to his personality and his glories. So in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, this is what I've thought on this, and I just lay it out there because I'm sharing with you at this point, these are my thoughts. Both things are true. He's a jiva and he's a nityasiddha. So we have other examples of that in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita or even in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Like Narada Muni is said to be both a nitya siddha and a sadhana siddha. Or more specifically to the point, in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, when what are their names? Vasu and his wife got the Drona and his wife, these demigods, they underwent severe austerities and penances, and Lord Brahma came to bless them, and they said, what we would like is that the Lord would become our son. Drona and Dara. Thank you, Vijay Prabhu. Now, it's pointed out, you can't do sadhana, what to speak of just austerities or what have you, and become the father and mother of the Lord. In fact, those positions are taken. I remember when I was Bhakti Raman, I kind of thought, man, it'd be cool to be Nanda Maharaj. And then I come to learn that's impersonalism. Nanda Maharaj is the father of Krishna. Now, you can develop a paternal relationship with Krishna, in the mood of Nanda Maharaj. But Nanda Maharaj is eternally Krishna's father. Yasoda is eternally her mother. So what's the story? So Nanda and Yasoda descend in expansions down into the material world in different ways with different leelas of the Lord. And sometimes the jivas get to piggyback with those expansions and fulfill their desires. They become purified with the association. It's inconceivable, I know, but the jiva and the nitya siddha there in one body. And this is what Sanatana Goswami explains in Brihad Bhagavatamrita with the parents of Krishna and Drona and Dara. And when, in the very end of it all, when the manifest leelas become unmanifest, and it's said they go back home, back to Godhead, you know who's going back home, back to Godhead? The jivas, Drona and Dara. But Nanda and Yasoda, they stay right with Krishna in the eternal leela that's going on. Never separated. So these are interesting. I don't want to spend an extraordinary amount of time on that, but ontologically speaking, this is the understanding. Look, Srila Prabhupada in the Chaitanya Charitamrita says he's the supreme Vaishnava. He didn't say a, he said the. That's in relationship to the pastime where Lord Chaitanya, when he would come have darshan of Lord Jagannath, Baladeva and Subhadra, he wouldn't go right up front like we do. He felt himself unqualified. In his humility, I'm not worthy. But he wants to be seen by the Lord. That's the proper mood of coming before the Lord. Please, I'm presenting myself before you for your pleasure. Be merciful upon me and give me just a sidelong glance. So Lord Chaitanya thinks his odds are better if I stand beside Garuda, because I know he's going to be looking at his devotee Garuda, pure Vaishnava, the carrier of the Lord. That's what the two sentences are. Garuda is the carrier of Lord Vishnu, and thus he is the supreme Vaishnava. So we know they're supreme, more supreme, most supreme. It's all superlative. It's all transcendental. But that's what he says. I'm saying that to emphasize he's an exalted devotee. This is a wonderful event taking place that we're asking him to descend in our midst for the pleasure of Radha Giridhari and for our protection and blessings. So, Nectar Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in like 3 or 4 places, Rupa Goswami uses him as examples of ecstatic love, symptoms of ecstatic love. He says that Lord Shiva, Uddhava, and Garuda are all in the relationship of servitude and friendship combined. Not too shabby to be mentioned in the same ranks with Lord Shiva or Uddhava. Exalted Vaishnava. So there's always a leela for these things, like Lakshmi. She's the eternal consort of Krishna, or Vishnu, right? But there's a leela in which she manifests. Do you remember what that leela was? How did Lakshmi manifest in this world? The churning of the milk ocean. Lakshmi appeared. So many personalities appeared. So Garuda has his pastime too. His father is Kashyapa. And his mother is Vinata. Now Kashyapa, usually when I think of him and his wives, it's Diti and Aditi. Diti is the mother of the Daityas, the demons, and Aditi is the mother of the demigods. She became the mother of Vamanadeva, etc. This Kashyapa is a powerful son of Lord Brahma, a powerful devotee. But he had 6 other wives besides them. They're all daughters of Daksha. And through those wives, different species appeared. Lord Brahma as the supreme Prajapati, he has the duty to the Lord to give us conditioned souls, bodies, so that we can enact our desires and ultimately come back to the Lord. So that's the business in the beginning of creation. Let's let the species manifest and let's get it on. So 2 wives worth mentioning in this regard. Kadru and Vinata. They were co-wives, they were sisters, And they both asked for a blessing from Kashyapa, having served and pleased him. Kudru wanted to have 1,000 sons. And Vinita, she, a little competitive, she thought, no, I'd like to have 2 sons, but both of them greater and more famous, more powerful than the 1,000 sons of Kudru. Tatashtu, they got what they wanted. He also had, Vinita also had a daughter by Kashyapa, Sumati, which if I have time, I'll mention later, past time with her. But anyway, so this is Satyuga. They lived to be how old? 100,000 years old. So Kudru had a quick pregnancy. She only carried her children for 500 years. It was a real quick one. And Vinita got a little anxious. Oh my gosh, she has her 1,000 sons. She sees the parental rasa. She's a little envious. Gosh, I want my son. So, interesting enough, born in eggs. One of the 3 ways in which the living entities are said to manifest their bodies. So, she went and cracked the one of 2 eggs, and Aruna was born, but he was half developed. I always kind of thought it was like that he is, by the way, who is he? He is the charioteer of Suryadev. When we talk about the sun rotating around, the seasons and the days and nights and what have you, Aruna is the driver of the chariot of Surya Bhagavan. Surya Narayan, Suryadev. So anyway, he's half developed. Whether he can walk or not, that's one thing. I seem to remember that he sits, and he's got a gig where he can sit down, but he's very upset because he's not fully developed. And he curses his mother. He said, I curse you that you're going to become a slave of Kudru. You'll be our menial maidservant. But you are my mom. So I'm going to also bless you that my younger brother will be the cause of your liberation. And then he goes off and he joins up with Surya and takes up his service. So, she becomes the menial servant, maid servant of Kudru. Not a very pleasant thing going on there. And so, how did she become a slave of Kudru? Well, during the churning of the milk ocean, there was a horse that came out, Uchaishrava. He's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Among horses, I am Uchaishrava. And he's all white. He's pure white. Well, they saw him ride by, or gallop by, and Kudru thought that the tail of the horse was black, and Vinita said, no, it was white. And Kudru was rather proud, and she said, no, I know it was black. In fact, I'll wager you. If it's black, you become my slave, my maidservant. If it's white, I'll become yours. So we'll see tomorrow. And she cheats. She goes and she finds the horse, and she sees, oh no, he's got a white tail. This isn't going to do. So she tells her 1,000 sons, the black snakes, to go and get on the backside of the horse and become all matted up with the tail of the horse. And when the horse comes galloping by the next day, sure enough, it's black. So she becomes a slave of Kudru because she cheated. Now, after that, Garuda is born, and he realizes my mother's, I'm born into slavery here. My mother's the maidservant of Kudru. And he approaches, well, at one time he tried killing his brothers. He was a very powerful personality. When he was born, his effulgence was as bright as the sun. Literally. He came up, and there's like 2 suns in the universe. And the demigods are like, who is this? So they approached Agni, the fire god, and they said, what are you doing? Who is this? He said, no, this is Garuda, a very powerful personality, son of Kashyapa. And so the demigods go and they pay obeisances to Garuda and they bless him. He gets blessings throughout his life like any and all Vaishnavas do by the mercy of the Lord. And so after he gets many blessings, they say, do you mind turning the effulgence down? Sure, no problem. So dims it down. Takes away that glaring effulgence. So after some time, he was going to... Kadru was carried by Vinita to go some long distance, and Garuda had all his brothers on his back, and he was flying. He thought, I'm sick of this. And he flew toward the sun. Higher and higher, closer and closer. And they passed out the closer they got to the sun. And he was intending to kill him, but Kadru prayed to Indra, please save them. Throw some water on them, get a cloud over and dash them back to consciousness. And sure enough, that's what Indra did. So that didn't work. So then he goes, okay, Nagas, my dear brothers, Kadru, what do I have to do? What's the price to have my mother regain her freedom? And they said, well, why don't you bring us some nectar from the heavenly planet of Indra? The stuff that legends are made of. Immortality, that nectar. He goes, okay. So he goes to his mother and he says, I've been given a price, I'm going to go do it. But it's a long ways from Earth to Indraloka, so he goes, what am I going to eat? He said, well, there's this island. You go there, Nishadas. Isn't that a lower uncivilized race, Nishadas? Yeah. So she says, you can eat Nishadas off of this one particular island. And this is Satyuga. There couldn't have been lots of uncivilized people in Satyuga. But she said, be very careful. Don't eat any Brahmins. Well, how I know who's a Brahmin? Well, if you do swallow them, they'll burn like fire in your throat. Immediately spit them out. So he goes there and he has Nishadas to his full satisfaction, but he accidentally also swallowed 2 Brahmins, a Brahmin couple, and he felt it and he coughed them out without harming them, and he got blessings from them. So, okay, now let's get back to work. So then he starts flying, but he thinks, I'll stop in and check in with my father. He was doing penances at Gandhana Madana mountain in the forest there, the jungles there. And he tells his father what he's going to do, and he says, what should I eat on the way? Evidently, he's a growing bird and he's concerned about his food. Sounds familiar. But he says, well, there's this one pond somewhere, and there's a big elephant and a tortoise, and they're constantly fighting each other. And the backstory is that they were 2 brothers fighting over their wealth and their inheritance and what have you. And he said, you can eat them. He goes, okay, sounds good to me. So he goes, he finds the pond, he grabs the elephant and the tortoise in his claws, and he's looking for a place to land to eat them. He snatched them up and he's flying, and he sees this tree, a fig tree. It's 100 yojanas wide. Huge tree. And so he goes to land on a branch, but the branch breaks off. And while it's breaking off, he realized, oh my God, there's 60,000 little sages hanging upside down on the bottom of this branch. I can't let them crash to the ground. That would be no good. And so he grabs the branch with his talon, and then he flies off. Oh God, what am I going to do? So he flies back to Dad, Kashyapa. He lays the sages down, and the sages knew Kashyapa. They'd had some past. I'll probably get to that. But Kashyapa apologized. Look, my son didn't realize you're there. He's very sorry. He didn't mean to disturb you. And because they had a relationship, and they said, no problem. Your son, young boy. No worries. So then they start heading off to the Himalayas to do more penance somewhere. Find some suitable place to meditate. And they blessed Garuda that, yes, may you be successful in your desire, in your adventure. So now he's got some more blessings, and he heads off to Indraloka. He gets there, and the demigods have gotten some warning that he's coming because ill omens were beginning to manifest. And so Indra asks his guru, Brihaspati, what's going on? He said, oh, Garuda's coming to take the nectar. Huh? Can't let that happen. There's a backstory where, those 60,000 sages that he had picked up accidentally off the branch, they, along with Indra, in the past had engaged in service to Kashyapa. He was doing these big yajnas and he wanted help gathering the firewood. Indra actually surrendered to serve Kashyapa along with these 60,000 sages. But an interesting fact about the sages, they were the size of a thumb. Now they were a lot bigger body than we are now in SanDiego, but still in SanDiego they were the size of a thumb. And so they couldn't bring much wood. So it's kind of like Hanuman the spider. Indra just laughed at him. What are you doing, you know? But these are sages. These aren't any regular Joe Schmoes. And so they go, oh, you're going to laugh at us? All right. And they go off to do their own yajna. And Indra realizes, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. They could really hurt me. They could curse me. This isn't good. So he goes to Kashyapa, and he tells him what the problem is. Kashyapa calls the 60,000 sages. He mediates with them. And, okay, we're not going to curse Indra. But we want to give him your son, a son that will come in the future. We want to give him the benediction that he will defeat Indra. So Brihaspati tells Indra that. Ooh, the plot thickens. So anyway, they put up their best defenses. The first man he runs into is Vishwakarma, but he was able to just easily knock him down to the ground. And then he starts flapping his giant wings, which Srila Prabhupada says in the third canto, when Kardama Muni had darshan of Vishnu riding on Garuda, that by the flapping of his wings comes the recitation of the Samaveda, or as Prabhupada says in the purport, the essence of which is Hare Krishna. So, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And he creates this giant dust storm, and all the demigods are blinded. And he's able to defeat Indra, Surya, Chandra, all the demigods. So he's defeated them. Now he's going to where the nectar pot is. Now it's not kept in a big giant vault like we know of it, but it's in this place, is all described in Mahabharata, where there's these two shining wheels, but they're like chakras. Anyone who goes to try to grab the pot of nectar, they'd be shredded to pieces. And if that's not enough security, there's these two giant cobras underneath that have these unblinking eyes, and they're poisoned just by they're so venomous that simply by looking at somebody, they could kill them. So Garuda, first of all, he sees the snake, so he creates a dust storm. He blinds the cobras, and then with his beak, he kills them. They're out of the way. And then he smashes up the wheels. My memory tends, but it's been a couple of decades since I read it. But I seem to remember there was some aspect of his assuming a very small size. What city is that called? Is that Anima? Being able to be Anima is smaller than the small. So he was able to get through the wheels. But either way, it doesn't matter. He accomplished his goal. He grabs the pot of nectar and he starts to fly off. Well, guess who enters into the scene? Lord Vishnu. He's very impressed and pleased with Garuda's determination. He said, I'd like to benedict you. What would you like? You know what he asked for? To become the Lord's carrier. And this is the Leela how Garuda got the job. Please allow me to be your carrier. And to become immortal without drinking any of this nectar. Tatashtu, so be it. He's blessed in that way. Well, Indra catches up, and he realizes, oh my gosh, I can't beat him. Might as well join him. And he says, please forgive me, Could we be friends? Sure, why not? Well then, can we have the nectar back? Guru says, well, we got a problem there. But here's what I'll do. I'll help you figure it out where you can get it back. But you have to bless me that the nagas become my food. And he goes, no problem, Tatashtu. In this regard, Prabhupada, in a conversation talking about Garuda, goes, you know he's not a vegetarian. And in a preaching mood, he said, sometimes you'll meet people who are like that aren't immediately able to take up vegetarianism in Krishna consciousness, and you have to be a little tolerant. The main thing is give them the positive, the holy names of the Lord. If they get a taste, then all the do-nots will fall to the wayside. So anyway, this Garuda, Supreme Vaishnava, that's his quota, so now he can eat all the snakes he wants. And then he goes, oh, wonderful, thank you, Indra. Well, then here's what you do. I'm going to go and take this pot of nectar to the Nagas because that's the price of my mother's freedom, to be, unenslaved. But I'm going to distract them, and when they're distracted, you grab the pot and you take it back home. So he gets there, and he brings it, and he lays it. He says, hey, this is special stuff, brothers. Lay out some darba grass. The Brahmins from India, they know darba grass. Very auspicious. It's also very sharp. Can cut you. And here, make a mat for, and they made that, and they placed the pot down. And he said, hey, don't just take it now. You got to go and take your bath. God dang, you're about to drink nectar. Go take your purificatory bath. Oh, okay. So they trot off to the river. Here comes Indra. And he's off with the nectar. He retrieves it. The snakes don't get any. Well, they're freaking out. So they go to lick the darba grass, hoping to get a drop there. All they end up doing is slicing their tongues. And from that day on, snakes have the two double, bifurcated tongue. So that was the story how Garuda became the carrier of the Lord. And what else is there? Yeah, they paid the price. You lost it, not me. I delivered the goods. I did my end of the bargain, and his mother became free. And I'm going to make mention of some of the ways in which Rupa Goswami glorifies him in his love for Krishna or God. He's always there in Vaikuntha. He's also there in Dwarka. He stands by the Lord as he sits on his throne, ever ready to serve him. And a couple of ways in which Rupa Goswami glorifies him in his ecstatic love. There's this anger. Anger's there in the liberated associates of the Lord. It's always properly, it's not for selfishness, but it's always properly directed. And one of the ecstatic symptoms is perspiring. And so when Garuda was flying over Vraj, and he saw that Indra was attacking Vraj, and was throwing some Vartaka rain clouds and the ice as big as pillars and thunderbolts, and he was trying to kill Krishna and all the Vaishnavas. Garuda became so angry with him, and his ecstatic anger manifested this perspiration. He began sweating all over. So it's an example of one of the symptoms of perspiring, and it came out of anger. And then there's another nice thing wherein feeling hopeless in a neutral mood of love. Just wanting, hoping. Against hope, the Lord would accept service. And Rupa Goswami says, he's thinking, who can be more pure than I? Where's there a second bird like me? So able and competent. Krishna may not like me. He may not wish to join my party. But still, he has to take advantage of my wings. Doesn't he? So you see, he's feeling hopeless, but he's wanting the service. But there's also a little bit of pride there. Doesn't it seem? Who's equal to me? Is there any other bird like me? Anyone as pure as me? So there's a couple of pastimes of Garuda being humbled by the Lord that I'll segue into right now. One of them anyway. Krishna's in Dwarka. Garuda's there. As I said, he stands in the assembly hall waiting to serve his Lord. And Krishna one time told him, seeing a little pride on the part of Garuda, why don't you go to, where was it, Kim Purusha Varsha, and tell Hanuman I'd like to see him. Bring him here, please. I'd like to see my devotee Hanuman. So Garuda, yes, my Lord, and he flies off to Kim Purusha Varsha, and then he tells Hanuman, hey, my Lord Krishna, Dwarkadish, he wants to see you. Come, let's go right now. Don't keep my Lord waiting. Hanuman's there doing his meditation, his bhajan, his worship of Ram. I'm busy. Don't bother me. No, I said, let's go. Read my lips. No, I'm busy. And so he tries to grab Hanuman. This is Garuda. He Kumbhakarna, what's he famous as? Indrajit. He conquered Indra. This is no small feat. Garuda's defeated all the demigods, so he goes to grab this monkey. Come on! And he couldn't budge him, not an inch. So he flies back to Dwarka and he won't come. Well, did you try to? No, I couldn't budge him. Well, go and tell him that Ram wants to have his darshan. Bring him here. Tell him that. So Garuda flies off to tell Hanuman, Ram, your master wants to see you. Well, why didn't you say so? Hanuman jumps off and he beats Garuda back to Dwarka. No small feat. So then he arrives, and Krishna turned into Ram. Satyabhama tried turning into Sita. She couldn't do it. It's kind of cool. Because she also has, she's the expansion of Srimati Radharani, and Rukmini's the expansion of Chandravali. But Rukmini, in her submissiveness to the Lord, for whatever reason the Leela unfolds, she was able to manifest as Sita. So Hanuman arrives, and there's Sita Ram. Very happy. And Garuda's just like, not only could he not budge him, he was beaten coming back to Lord. I mean, basically, useless. So his pride was deflated. And there's another pastime where, you remember I mentioned Sumati, the elder sister of Garuda? So there was, no, that's the thing. Don't let me mix it up. I'm sorry. Malati, the chariot driver of Indra, had a very beautiful, qualified wife, and he wanted to get a qualified husband for his daughter. He looked and looked throughout, and he came upon a Naga in the lower regions. Let's see if I can find the name of the Naga. Yeah, Sumaka. He wanted to marry his daughter, who was Gunakeshi, to this. Well, Sumaka's father had been eaten by Garuda just a little bit before. And Garuda had said, by the way, Sumaka, you're next. I'll be back within a month. And Sumaka's like, wow, I'd love to marry you, but God, Garuda's going to kill me. He's going to eat me. So Malati, the charioteer of Indra, goes to Indra and he says, can you do anything about this? So Indra blesses Sumaka that you'll have an extended life. Garuda won't be able to harm you. And he blessed them. In fact, he married them. Now, Garuda comes along and he's like, huh? Indra did this? So he flew up to Indraloka and is like, who do you think you are? I had the blessing to eat these snakes. Well, I'm sorry, you just can't have this one. And he began to criticize and chastise Indra. And as fate would have it, even the Lord was there. Vishnu was there. And in his anger and pride, he started, chewing on the Lord. He was really carried away. So here's what the Lord does. Okay, calm down. Hey, we can work this out. I just want you to do one thing for me first, though. Here, take my hand and hold it up for me. Okay, my Lord. So Garuda, and the Lord places his hand on Garuda, and then Garuda feels that hand becomes heavier than all the three worlds. And the Lord pushed his head down to the ground. And this way, Garuda snapped out of it and going, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? I'm sorry. He apologizes. And in this way, two different Leelas, which even the pure devotees, sometimes it appears as if they might become a little full of themselves, but the Lord won't have it. It's his mercy when he humiliates us. He helps us to realize our position, our true position as his servant. And how should I wind this up? One last thing. When we unveil Garuda tonight, do you know what stance he has? What's he doing with his hands? Can everybody do that? Show me. Okay. For those on the internet, you can see, I don't know if the kitchen's listening in, but everybody's clapping their hands like they're saying a prayer. Now, I want to say to the audience online that a couple of weeks ago I made mention that paying obeisances, and not hatchet obeisances, but actually saying the pranams to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was one of the easiest way to make advancement in devotional service. And it's one of the four simple but very most important ways to serve the Lord. Offering obeisances, remembering Him, becoming His devotee, worshiping Him. So I'm happy to share their glories surrounded by so many sincere devotees. I have, with practically hardly any exception, not seen a hatchet obeisances since then. Sincere devotees, I can make easy, rapid advancement. They took it up. May you be blessed throughout your life. Remember that little tip. So another tip. When we come before the Lord, stop and think of the pictures you've seen of Srila Prabhupada having darshan. Greeting the deities. What's he always doing? Did you ever see the Lord, my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, did you ever see him standing before the Lord with his hands in his pocket? Or, this is a really bad one. Sometimes you see it in guests. Not very often do the devotees. Standing there with his arms crossed. Oh man, I've shared with you before that, hands behind your back, down by your bottom side. You never saw Srila Prabhupada do that. On terms of folding the arms, one of my Siksha gurus told me in early days of ISKCON in India, there would be many a temple where if you stood in front of the Lord, the deities, with your arms folded, they'd kick you right out. Who do you think you are, you arrogant son of a gun? Because the body language of this is, it's pride. You got your walls up, and we're not having it. The protocol, the etiquette is, you're in front of your master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you fold your hands. And even in kirtan, if you're not playing instruments or dancing, you should fold your hands. It's a simple thing. It's so simple. Maybe a little practice to get it down, to remember, put your hands together. Exception when you raise your hands when you're dancing. Did you know that in Chaitanya Bhagavat says when you're chanting Hare Krishna in kirtan with arms raised that you're actually blessing the demigods? Did you know that? They're getting part of the benefit of your chanting the holy names. Had you heard that? This is good stuff. And when you dance, you know what's included in the dancing? That those in the lower regions of the universe, they benefit by your dancing on the ground, dancing during kirtan. This is Chaitanya Bhagavat. The Lord's so merciful. He's trying His best to help everybody, and we can play a part. But at least, when you come before the Lord, remember, it's just like if you went in front of the President or the Queen of England or somebody like that, their associates are not going to let you kind of like just slump and, casually like be uncultured and uncivilized or disrespectful. Minimum, Malecha culture, you stand up straight. You show respect. In Vaishnav culture, before the Lord, Garuda is setting the example. Srila Prabhupada set the example. It's a tiny little thing, but just add it to the sadhana, and you make that much more advancement. So, anything else? There's more, but I know there's time, and we have to serve here. Taking prasadam. Anybody have any additions or questions? Thank you for your association, for your attention, and let's have a wonderful installation tonight, praying that Garuda and Ganeshji bless us and help us in our devotional service. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki.